everyone. It's Marabelle Blue with a new life coaching realities. And you know, this is going to be a super duper episode because we have Andrew back. He will be back multiple times when we are discussing topics that go on a professional level. I'm not a professional. He is, and that's the way we're keeping it. Today's topic, we are talking about mental health coupled with weight loss. Now, if you're triggered by this by any reason, just warning you in advance, weight and weight loss is a very sensitive topic. I know it could be sensitive for me in certain areas of my life. And I'm really, really looking forward to having this conversation with Andrew because Andrew has made an incredible transformation. If you are not following him on TikTok, you can see, and I see it for myself, the transformation him and his wife have made for the betterment of their health. And I think we're going to throw in a little bit of Lizzo because I did talk about Lizzo on my Unfiltered channel with the lawsuit and everything that's going on there. So I do want to bring up certain points she has mentioned in the past and basically gauge your perception on what do you think about the things that she's saying, how the public receives that. And before you answer that question, if you're new to this channel, please do consider subscribing. It does help the algorithm, and also hit like and comment. We want to hear your stories as well. And if you are not new, welcome back. So let's get started. Let's talk about weight loss, mental health, transformation, what commitment that takes. Because I remember when I initially first lost weight, it was a very powerful feeling to go to the gym, to eat better, to eat healthier, to make choices. It's almost as if I realized, oh, wait, I have a choice to what foods I'm going to put in my mouth. Just because McDonald's is across the street and the pizzeria is right next to it, it doesn't mean those are my choices.
No, they're not. Those aren't your choices. Are only limited by what you allow yourself to be limited by. But before we get into anything, I just want to thank you for having me on again. I love when I get to come on. So thank you.
I love having you here. I know that it's going to be a great show when you come on.
Thanks. But yeah, you're every day we have a choice, and all day long. And I have that. I face those same choices every morning. I get up at 4 a.m. and I get my dog squared away. I get my wife out the door so she can start her day at work. I get my one son up so he can start doing his homeschool day. I get my other child out at the door so she can get to campus. And then I have a choice. Do I sit on the couch for 2 hours before my day actually starts, or do I get into the gym, which is in my garage, and work out for an hour, a day before I sit down and have coffee and relax and do. It's a choice. And then all day long, I have a choice. Do I walk? Do I take the steps rather than an elevator? Now I take a bicycle, to my office because my office is pretty close by. Now it's like, all right, do I walk? Do I ride the bicycle to work, or do I drive? What am I eating for breakfast? How long am I going to fast for? These are all choices that impact our overall health. And at the end of the day, it's no different. Like, all right, what's for dinner? But we meal prep, so I know what's for dinner. But for other people, these are choices that they have to make. Am I going to have something healthy, or am I going to not have something healthy? Am I going to have dessert? Am I going to have alcoholic beverage because it's been a rough day? And then it's the secondary things. How do I talk myself into to justify my bad choices? And those are choices, to justify it or just deal with it and be like I was weak today. Tomorrow I'll be stronger. Those are choices that we make.
I'm glad that you're saying that when you say today I was weak. Like, in other words, everybody develops a cheat day where they're going to kind of
you have to give that to yourself,
that you're not eating during the week.
Yes. Having a cheat day, first of all, it helps with making sure that you're getting the other things that you need, like making sure you're having enough fats. But if you're operating at a calorie deficit, like I do most days, you don't want to be like starving yourself, and you want there's that mental aspect to it of having a cheat day of, I know that Friday night I can have pizza and not have to feel guilty about it. Do I feel bad the next day physically when I'm working out and my joints are all inflamed from having carbs? Yes, definitely. Again, that's a choice. I can easily say my cheat meal is going to be some, barbecue ribs or something more protein based rather than something that's going to be carb based. It's still a choice, and you pay the price for it. But I don't have to feel that guilt come Saturday morning because, that I've allowed myself myself that treat. I've worked hard for it. I
Mhm.
worked out 6 days this week or 7 times in 5 days, because some days I'll do 2 workouts. So yeah, I can have a third cocktail with dinner, and I don't have to feel bad mentally for it. I might feel bad physically for it, but I don't have to
Mhm.
feel bad mentally. And I don't have to justify it with myself as to why I did it. I did it because that's the schedule. Just like Sunday morning, getting up and doing yoga is the choice and part of the regiment.
Right.
That cheat meal is then part of the regiment. So overall, it'll help, that having that cheat meal as a release will then help my mental health.
Well, and then the other thing is, just because somebody creates a cheat day for themselves, it doesn't mean that you go running to the local diner and pile up on
Oh,
food
no, no.
that you feel you're depriving
Yeah.
yourself from. Like, there's no reason to have 4 pancakes, 3
Mm-mm.
eggs.
No, you can have just a taste. In all honesty, I want to say it's very European, I know, but I want to say I learned this from my ex mother-in-law. She was Russian, and she would follow the French diet, as she called it, and she would eat whatever she wanted, but it would be very small portions. It didn't matter for her. I mean, she was blessed with good metabolism, but like, just because it's your cheat day or your cheat meal, I limit it to a meal. But so just because you do that, that doesn't mean you have to have some extravagant
Mhm.
meal like The Rock. His cheat meals are epic. He posts them on his Instagram, but he's also doing something different. So he's making sure that he's getting those other fats and such in to balance out. But that doesn't mean you have to do that. Like, your cheat meal can be some small portions, but a few different things. There's no reason you can't have a chicken parm slider rather than a chicken parm hero. Have a half of a rice ball rather than a whole rice ball, because if you get a rice ball from like the pizzeria, right, they're gigantic. So you can have half that. You can still have small portion bad food
And
in the cheat
still
meal.
enjoy it without overeating.
Oh, there are times now, like, I'll overdo it, and I'll take carbs, because carbs do it to me every single time. But I'm a carb addict. Like last Saturday, my cheat meal was I split a chicken parm and pasta dinner with my wife. Came out and we halved it. It was delicious. It was awesome. Now Sunday morning, when I got up to do yoga last week, were my joints inflamed? Yes. But did I feel good that I ate what I wanted? Yeah. But I didn't feel bad that I ate what I wanted mentally.
I think it's good that you're bringing this up about the inflammation with the joints. Do you think that people at some point in their lives, when they look at people of an older generation, they believe that none of those things are going to happen to them because they're thin right now?
Oh yes, I mean, but that just because you're thin, that don't mean you can't have like a physical reaction to
Right.
to a food or anything like
Mhm.
that. It's just like we're all prone to it. People always think like, oh, if you have a gluten allergy, you must be overweight because you ate a lot of bread. No, you could be thin and have a gluten allergy. It's just how the glutens, or wheat affects your body. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter, heavy or not. At some point in your life, you can develop a reaction to certain foods. Look, same thing with allergies. You could not have a pollen allergy all your life. All of a sudden, you turn 51, 52. Hey, you got a pollen allergy. Why? Because your body just becomes susceptible as it gets older to different things.
Right. Let's talk about your personal journey. We met through a mutual friend, Rich
Yes.
Woods. He's so awesome. I love him and his wife to death. They are just wonderful people.
Unbelievable people. And I will say, just in case they're listening, I thank them for their friendship, because they helped me out at a time in my life when I absolutely needed it. And I value their
Yes.
friendship like family.
You were doing a cooking show.
Yes, for fun. Yes, I was doing a cooking show on Facebook Live. That was totally for fun.
And that was awesome. When you were doing these shows, and I'm telling you, the food looks so delicious. I
Thank
was
you.
dying on the other end
Thank
of the computer. I'm like, oh my God, this food looks so good. When did you have an epiphany to say to yourself first? Or did you have a conversation with Jennifer? Did you both look at
you.
each other and say, we want to change? Did something happen
Yes.
physically to you that you said, maybe your doctor told you something and you were like, I got to make a change? Like, what transpired to
I
change
had,
it?
and not a lot of people know this, but I had a minor heart attack one night at work. I worked on a mental health inpatient facility, and it was like a crisis stabilization facility. So it's like you came in actively high or active psychosis, actively wanted to yourself, and we'd get you stable. It was on night shift, so we were always short staffed. There was never a time when we weren't short staffed. We had just done a takedown on a very large person who was extremely violent. At the time, I was 350 pounds. We're sitting there, and after we do a takedown, we would debrief. And during the debriefing, my charge nurse looked at me, and I was always hot. I was always sweating. And now it's the opposite. Now I'm always cold. But she just looked at me. She's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." She's like, "You're sweating." I was like, "I'm always sweating." So she touched my head. She's like, "You feel cold and clammy." And I was like, "Oh." So they checked my blood pressure, and it was like 260 over 140, and I had some chest pain. They wheeled me right downstairs to the emergency room, and yeah, I had a minor heart attack. It required no intervention, it resolved. But I was told at that point that I was diabetic, and that if I didn't make drastic changes to my life, I'd be on diabetic medications and lead to other issues. I was working night shift, and I was in school on day shift, and I had 4 months. I had 4 months left to go of school, and I won't forget, I'm laying there in the bed, and the cardiologist, nurse practitioner, she was talking to me. She's like, "So what's going on, in your personal life?" Because a lot of times it'll stem from personal life, stuff. And I'm like, "Well, night shift, whatever." And she's like, "Oh, what school you go to?" I told her, Walden University. She's like, "Oh, that's where I went. What classes did you take?" I said, "Well, I just finished advanced assessment and advanced pharmacology." And she looked at me and she's like, "Honey, you don't take those 2 classes at the same time." I was like, "Yeah, I did." She's like, "No, you're supposed to take one, and that's the only class you take. And then the next semester, you only take that. You don't take anything else because they're the hardest classes." I was like, "No, I took them both at the same time because I want to get done." She's like, "Well, your grades, are they okay? You passing? Like, maybe that's stressing you out." I was like, "Oh, I got an A+ in both classes." She's like, "Well, you need to drop one of those classes right now." I was like, "No, I'm done. Actually, I just turned in my last assignments for those 2 classes on Friday." And this was like, I think, Tuesday or Wednesday morning because it was night shift. And she just looked at me. She's like, no one does those 2 classes together and does that well on them." I was like, "I do." I said, "But again, that's why I'm laying in this bed right now, right?"
Right.
But I was drinking heavily because it's night shift. With night shift and in healthcare, abusing your body becomes part of it. The lifestyle, unfortunately, whether you smoke or drink. I was drinking heavily on my days off, or any time off. Then I would make choices, right? You mentioned choices. I'd make choices to justify my drinking, like, "Oh, it's Thursday, and I just got an assignment done. I'm going to have some wine because I need help sleeping tonight because I have to get up at 5 to be back at the hospital for clinical at 6."
Because
Yeah.
becomes a trail of because.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could justify, you could you could justify it with excuses any way you want. You paint the picture. So I was eating unhealthy. I was working out, but I was working out because I worked on a unit that was violent, and I needed to be physically strong to be able to keep myself and the staff safe, as well as the other patients from these unstable patients. So you have to be able to do a takedown, safely. You have to be able to strain a patient safely, and being physically imposing at times would de-escalate situations. It would stop situations from getting worse. I played into that. And again, it was part of the lifestyle. At that point, did not want to go on metformin because I knew about the dangers of being on metformin long-term. And I definitely didn't want it. And I said to my doctor, "Give me 3 months. Give me 3 months. And if you don't see something substantial, what you tell me is substantial. I don't even want to know now what you say is substantial. Tell me at that point that I made substantial improvements. I will then go on all the medications, and I won't say a word. I'll be your best patient." He's like, "All right, you got 3 months." So my A1C was like 12.5 at that point. In 3 months, I went from 350 pounds to like 310. And then, I got my A1C down to like 6.5. And my doctor was like, I was like, "That's substantial." He's like, "That's awesome." As I'm doing that, I'm starting to feel better. And then he's like, "All right, let's do another 3 months." So in that 3 months, I got down to 280, and I got my A1C down to 5.5. At that point, I stopped drinking. I changed the way I was working out. I stopped lifting heavy weights. I started doing lighter weights, more repetition. I say lighter weights. It's lighter weights for me. Do I still have a 150-pound sandbag that I will lift and, snatch and then squat with and do stuff with? Yes. But for me, that's lighter because I had a sandbag that was like 250 pounds to 275, depending on what I put in it. So like I went to a lighter weight for me. I focused more on yoga and more cardio, where even my weight training was cardio based to get my heart rate up. And I just started making better food choices. That cheat day just became a cheat meal.
It's scary. When I first lost weight, I was a little bit younger, so it seemed to come off easier. I had joined Weight Watchers, and I really applied myself. into food and what I was eating. But, alas, depression
Yes.
came along. I think in my head, all of the things that, like, I started doing YouTube and I was blogging all of these different shows and I was writing. And all of a sudden, this depression just like fell on me. I felt like I was in some kind of a hole. It was really awful. Like, I can't describe it. And I remember one time I had put on a little bit of weight, less than what I am now. I wish I could be there now. And I had this dress on, and there was a guy that I knew from the 12-step meetings that I used to go to. And I don't know, I can't remember what was the verbiage of the conversation, but he turned around, he goes, "Yeah, I could tell you put on some weight." And
Ew.
I'm like,
That's mean.
"Really?"
Mean.
How dare you? Comments like that is what messed me up
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first got clean and I was living in Manhattan, and I remember I would make all of these meetings, and every girl that was in the meetings that I was attending, we're talking about downtown Manhattan, okay? East 12th Street, grunge before grunge in the
Yeah.
90s, where every girl was like a walking stick.
Mhm.
And me standing next to them, I was like this wider than life SpongeBob Patrick. You know how like Patrick is kind of like thin up here and like big in the middle? And
Yes.
that was the way I felt. And I did not feel good about
Mhm.
myself. And what did I do? Because I didn't feel good about myself, I ate.
Yeah. Listen,
Just
food is comforting, right? Food is comforting. It just is. I mean, whether it's except salad or kale. Kale is not comforting. Right, but all this food that like from our childhood or food from like special occasions, lasagna, leftover
Mhm.
lasagna is extremely comforting. It just is. It is comfort food. Spaghetti and meatballs, raviolis, pizza. It is all comfort food. It just is. Macaroni and cheese. It's
Oh,
comforting.
pancakes.
Pancakes or waffles, like that stuff is just comforting. It's satisfying because there's synapses in our brain that get connected when
Mhm.
the whole pleasure principle, right? The pleasure
Right.
factor. It's
Mhm.
that tastes so good. So then you feel good, but then you feel like crap after. And you start looking in the mirror and you're like, I don't like what I see.
Mhm.
People who are overweight and obese have like a 55% chance more likelihood of developing depression and anxiety related to the weight. It's terrible. It's terrible the way obesity is treated in this country, in our society. It just is.
Now that you bring that up, let's dive into the whole Lizzo thing. Other
Mhm.
than the lawsuit, because that's not really the topic of why we're bringing her up. Lizzo comes on the scene. She's a big girl. I remember one time somebody had posted a picture of her. I think she was going to Cardi B's party, and she was wearing something see through, basically pasties covering her boobs, everything all out in this nylon thing. She's walking barefoot. I didn't know who she was. All I know is that I'm slammed with this picture on my timeline, and I'm like, what? Like, the guy's like, doesn't Lizzo look beautiful? And I'm like, maybe I'm going to be the small majority here, but no, no. Can you imagine in the state that I'm in right now, if I wore something like that,
I I give her a
I
lot of
would
credit
be
for
shunned.
it. I give her a lot of credit for it because you have to be confident in yourself
Mhm.
to even now at 215 pounds and working out like 5 and 6 days a week. I still feel funny when I have to take my shirt off, swimming or something like that. Like it still bothers me. I'm a size 36 pants and I was never 36 in my life, but I still feel funny wearing, posting a workout video on my Instagram story of me wearing shorts. Okay.
When I see you working out, it gives me inspiration. But like, again, I'm in my head doing it. I'm not doing it in real life.
Right.
I have a job. I get home. I'm feeding my cats. My mom takes care of my dogs because she has dogs too. So they kind of in the repetition that she can take care of them. But I feed my cats. And I come up here, and the first thing that goes through my mind, I want to finish this article I started writing. I need to edit this video. I need to read up on some things in order for me to make notes. I'm doing a whole bunch of different things and not really putting in my head 15 minutes out of your day, just
Yeah.
15 minutes. Go downstairs to that treadmill. 15 minutes. It's not going to take away from other
Nothing
things
is
that you're
going to
doing.
suffer. Nothing is going to suffer by you taking 15 to 20 minutes, a half hour for yourself. It's for yourself. It's not for anyone else. You're
Mhm.
doing that for you. Nothing is going to suffer. There's nothing that is so urgent that it cannot wait 30 minutes for you to get some self-care in of working out.
I want to go back to Lizzo and the whole
Mhm.
normalizing obesity. She has this corporation, Big Girls something, where I think she was like auditioning dancers. I didn't know they were big girls. In my head, I envisioned like Madonna dancers.
Yes. Yeah.
When she had made the comment about them putting on too much weight. I mean, these girls are moderately smaller than she is. Why would she allegedly say that to them? Why would she put out mixed messages? Because you if you look at social media, people are very, very evil. They think they can say these things without ramifications, without one day that potentially they too can be in a position where they will have health issues. And those health issues may require medication.
Yes.
Those medications can make you put on weight, even though you don't want to. Like, nobody thinks about this. They're just looking at, well, here I am and here you are. And that's not going to happen to me because I'm being vigilant. And then, boom,
No, but
one
things
day
like
something.
arthritis, and I'll take arthritis as the best example. Arthritis is going to can happen to all of us, right?
Right.
Like 95% to 100% chance we're all going to get arthritis. One
Mm-hmm.
of the things used to treat it, and especially if you have rheumatoid arthritis, are steroids. What do steroids do? To make you gain weight, and
Yep.
it's hard weight to lose, even when you're off them for a while. It's something about steroids. It just that weight that comes with it is just difficult to lose, and that can happen to anybody. And now all of a sudden you're dealing with an issue that you may have never dealt with before: weight. And like I said, that weight from steroids is very difficult to get off. Now all of a sudden, for the first time in your adult life, let's just say 45, 50, whatever, 35, you are now dealing with an issue you never had to deal with in your life. Now that's going to take a mental toll, because all of a sudden now you're feeling ridicule, or you think you're feeling ridicule from people that maybe you're not, but it could be imagined. Fine, but you could just be you're ridiculing yourself. It doesn't matter. It's something you're going to have to now deal with on a mental level that you never had to deal with before, and you were actually callous about other people's struggle with this.
Do you think it's a good idea for someone like Lizzo, doesn't necessarily have to be her, to normalize being overweight and not really thinking about the ramifications of what can happen
Yeah,
later
I
in
mean,
life?
but it's not if you're if you're healthy,
Mhm.
okay, it ultimately isn't going to matter. You have to, one, be healthy, and two, be comfortable with where you're at. If you look at The Rock, I bring up The Rock a lot because I'm a big fan. He's a huge inspiration on me. He's technically obese. You look at him, is he? No, but from the scales, the antiquated system, BMI and scales, he's overweight. Is he healthy? Looks healthy. I've never heard of him ever say he has other issues. Athletes, as they get older, they start to develop. We all start to develop stuff as we get older. It just happens. So having a lighter frame, does it help? Definitely. But you can be big and still be healthy. I mean, look at pro wrestlers, relatively healthy guys. They get physicals. If something's wrong, they can't compete. Boxers. I mean, Mike Tyson. Look how big he was. Back in the day. Was he healthy? I should hope so. He's
Right.
getting in there and exerting himself for a few rounds. You can normalize being big, but you can't normalize being unhealthy. And that's the whole point.
Right.
But there is plenty of science that shows being larger takes its toll on your heart, on your
Mhm.
joints, your bones, all of it. It's an unnecessary strain. So being healthy and being big is difficult, but it's possible, but not for the long term. Ultimately, we should be practicing and preaching being healthy.
Whatever the definition of healthy is,
And you
because
talk to your doctor about that.
108 pounds is not healthy for a
No,
grown
no, 108.
adult.
Yeah, exactly. For a grown adult, no, no.
There's a girl on YouTube, I forget her name right now. she's been on YouTube for quite a long time. And I think I had mentioned this when we talked months ago about putting together an episode about weight and mental health. She was already skinny, but it became a point where she became skeletal.
Yeah.
It's frightening to see that. And her mom, who would sometimes partake in her shows, whatever she was doing, people would be screaming at her mother, "You're abusing her. You're not going to get her help. Like, you
Yeah.
need to do something." That I think 3 other YouTubers had contacted the authorities and was like, "Hey, this mom is allowing this to happen." When somebody is in that phase of anorexia and a parent is watching this child, is it a form of abuse? Is it a form of neglect
Well,
on the
body
parent?
dysmorphia, there's no age limit on or age requirement for body dysmorphia, right? It could happen from a young age. More so, it usually happens more in a young age, but it happens as you get older too. But is it abuse? It's abuse if you don't do anything about it once it's brought to your attention. You could easily be oblivious. If you spoke to my mother right now, she would still tell you that I was fat because she can't comprehend that I'm now 215 pounds, right? So in her mind, though, and my son, he's 300-pound guy. She doesn't realize it when she look, because she just doesn't see it, because her image of me is my son's big, not, oh wow, my son's lost weight. So you could be oblivious because you're in the situation. It does take an outsider perspective at times to bring stuff to your awareness. But once you're aware of it and you don't do anything, that's where abuse and neglect comes from. Because I don't know the situation, I'm going to assume she didn't realize what was going on with her daughter. And I get that. I see that a lot in parents with young people. I deal with mental health. I'll get a 15, 16-year-old. They'll be like, yeah, I've been cutting for 3 or 4 years. And I tell mom, like, your kid's been cutting. My kid cuts? I never even noticed. Yeah, but you notice they wear hoodies all the time. Yeah, I just figured they're a kid. Because they're not thinking along those lines of something is wrong with my kid, because you never want to think something's wrong with your kid. You always want to think your kid's great, right?
Mhm.
But when I was in EMS, I ran on a call of a very happy family with a 12-year-old in the ceiling, from a ceiling fan. Parents had no clue. It's not their fault. They didn't know. The fault comes from after you know and you don't do anything. Unfortunately, for that boy, it was too late. Now, if they ignored all those signs with their other child, and that happens, well, that's on them. So for this mom, I have to assume she doesn't realize what's going on with her kid. But when people start telling you, especially strangers, when strangers start telling you, this is like, with you, that stranger at the 12th step was like, you're putting on weight. Like, holy crap. I didn't realize. Maybe you didn't realize it. The people around you probably didn't realize it. Look, when I was 350 pounds and I started telling people, yeah, I had a heart attack, I was 350 pounds, everyone was like, you were 350 pounds? I never even noticed. No, because people aren't paying attention,
Right.
But once it's brought to your attention and you don't do anything, yes, that's where abuse and neglect would come from, for sure.
Personally, for me, I'm always paying attention. It's been a rough couple of years since 2017, 2018. And a lot of the times I don't like to look at myself in the mirror. And, preparing for this show today, I made a conscious choice. I'm not going to put on makeup. I'm just going to be fresh face and whatever, because this isn't about me looking all dolled up. I want to focus in on the message of how are we feeling today? What are we going to do about those feelings? There was a post that I commented on Dr. Now. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, 600-Pound Life. I've never really watched it, but just because Howard Stern talks about Dr. Now and he watches those shows, Dr. Now has a way with words when he's talking to people who are this extreme overweight. And there was a person who had commented underneath me. There's a whole argument going on in one thing that I said. Dr. Now doesn't hold back. He's telling you your life is at stake. And then underneath this is a trail. People arguing with each other. The one comment that I put, and I don't even engage in whatever it is that they're arguing about, because you have people that, no, he should be more sensitive, and other people like, no, like, these people are an extreme that they need help walking out a door.
I get patients all the time telling me, wow, you're so blunt. And I tell them, well, I'm sorry. They're like, no, I needed it. When you deal with mental health, it's bluntness. Like when you go to nursing school, you learn nursing communications with patients. There's a way to phrase things where you're being very cordial and nice. And you have to ask yes or no type of questions. But then when you get into mental health, they tell you the opposite. It's be blunt, ask the tough question, and be direct. Because
Right.
someone who comes in to the emergency room for suicide ideation, active suicide ideation, you have to know how safe or how not safe they are. And the only way to know that is to ask them straight, if I walk out of the room, are you going to try to hurt yourself? And if they say yes, I'm not leaving the room. Plain and simple. So in mental health, there is, I can't even say it's a fine line. You have to be blunt. You have to be. You ever see the movie What About Bob?
No.
Richard Dreyfuss, Bill Murray, came out in like 1990, 1991. Bill Murray is a psychiatric patient to Richard Dreyfuss. Richard Dreyfuss' character is a psychiatrist. They develop what's called, by the end of the movie, they develop what's called death therapy. And it's Richard Dreyfuss being blunt and harsh to rattle the Bill Murray character. And when I was an ICU nurse,
Wait, the other way around, because you said Bill Murray was the psychiatric patient? Or
yeah, Bill Murray was
so
the patient.
Bill Murray was the patient.
Yeah,
Richard
and
Dreyfuss
Richard
was the
Dreyfuss,
doctor.
yeah, was a psychiatrist. So over the course of the movie, by the end, Richard Dreyfuss' character comes up with this death therapy, and that's what shakes Bill Murray character. And when I was an ICU nurse, and I learned this from being a paramedic, you go into someone's house and they're not breathing or they have difficulty breathing, and you want to put oxygen on them, and they push you away. And it's like, bro, I would just say this, bro, do you want to die? No, put the oxygen on, because if you don't put the oxygen on, you're not going to be able to breathe and you're going to die. So when I worked in the ICU, I had this reputation for, get Andrew, because he'll give death therapy. And that's what I'm just talking to you because I need to get through to you in a way that you are not thinking, being the, hey, why don't you put the oxygen on? It's going to make you feel better. No. Do you want to die?
Right. These are people who really don't understand. I call them snowflakes. They really don't understand the harshness of why people need to take that route. It's the same.
Listen, I've had patients tell me
constructive criticism.
I've had patients tell me, "Oh, you like that because you don't care." No, I do care. I care so much that I cannot just pat you on your head and rub your belly, tell you it's going to be fine. I care so much that I want you to have the best quality of life possible, that I'm going to be blunt and tell you the harsh truth that other people won't tell you. I had to tell it to myself when I was laying in a hospital bed with chest pain at 350 pounds. I need to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to die. Having to watch my wife cry sitting next to me and holding my hand. Having to call the house that morning and wake up my daughter and be like, Abby, I need you to wake up your mom, tell her I'm in the hospital, I'm having chest pain. Just to hear her crying. I needed that. We need that wake-up call, and that only comes from harshness. It just does. Do I care about every one of my patients? Yes. I have a vested interest in every single one of their successes in life. I want them to have the highest quality of life possible for as long as possible. With some people, you have to be blunt.
I agree with you on that. I think when I first got clean, if they didn't talk to me the way that they did, people were very brutal in the 90s. I got clean in 1991, and I walked in there and there were people who were talking about shooting up. I'm trying to be careful in how I describe things because it's YouTube,
Yeah.
And then when women were talking about doing it, I was like, women did this? This is how oblivious I was to another world that I knew about it, but I didn't want to be a part of it. Like if somebody offered it, I'm like, no, I don't want any part of that. The one thing that they would say is give yourself 90 days, 90 meetings in 90 days. And if you don't like it, you can walk out the door. Your misery will be refunded for you. Maybe not for free, but it's there. It's waiting for you. I said to myself, well, gee, you put it like that. I don't know if I want that, because now you're in that mindset of, what's out there and that it didn't work. So maybe give yourself the 90 days and see what happens. And then 90 days turn to 160 days and so on, and then 365 days and then so on and so forth. And then here we are 32 years later.
Awesome.
And for me, that alone is a personal accomplishment. There was a day that I was like, how am I going to live without drinking or doing anything else, without not being in that mindset? And now all of a sudden, it's not even something that you think about. It just becomes normal. I was watching Michael Rosenbaum. He has this show called Inside of You. He was Lex Luthor on Smallville.
Oh, I was just talking about that show with someone yesterday. It is a
Yeah.
great podcast. I watched the videos on TikTok. It is awesome.
I love him. I
Yeah.
think his Inside of You, like his shows are so informative in the sense that he does talk about like mental health, and the conversations that
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
having with celebrities just goes on a deep dive of what really goes
Yes.
on with you personally. So I watched the interview he did with Andrew McCarthy. I didn't know that Andrew McCarthy was in sobriety. And he had asked Andrew McCarthy, do you miss drinking? And Andrew was like, I don't even think about it. And I understood that. You don't wake up in the morning anymore thinking, what am I going to drink today?
Yes.
I get up in the morning now, what needs to get done,
Yes.
take care of myself, take care of my animals, get some writing done. Like my whole life, literally like a 360. Now, if I can only do that with my weight.
You see, I do the same thing. I wake up and now it's like, all right, it's not what am I having for breakfast? It's, which, again, would be a bagel, whatever. Now it's how much am I going to work out before I sit down and have coffee?
Right.
How much, and over the course of the day. And this is where, like, when you start getting into that mindset of losing weight and the things that you do, like meal prepping, it's, all right, I know what I'm eating for lunch. I know what I'm eating for dinner. I know what my snack is before bed. You take those choices that you spoke about. You take those choices away because now it's, I know what I'm having for lunch. I know what's for dinner. I know what my snack is. There's no deviating. There's no choosing. There's no distraction. It's this regimen. You're so much more productive by following this regimen. And just those small little things of lunch and dinner are taken care of. The rest of the day is going to start to follow because I've already started my week out on the right foot. My lunches and dinner are squared away. Those choices are now off the table. I know they are. Those distractions from those choices are now off the table. I'm going to now concentrate on being more productive. I wouldn't be able to concentrate on my practice 24/7 the way that I do, building it up from nothing with my wife, if I was still drinking heavily every day and eating poorly. Because you think being overweight and having a food issue, an eating issue, it's no different than any other addiction. You spend all the time thinking about that next time you're going to do it. Obese people spend a large amount of time thinking about the next meal, right? Speaking for myself, I'm not speaking for everyone's different. For myself, I would be thinking about dinner at lunch. How the hell am I getting any work done in the afternoon? I'm thinking about dinner. It's noon. I'm thinking about what I'm doing at 6 p.m.
I relate so much to that. When you're doing something, your mind is like far ahead in what is it that I'm going to be eating over the weekend.
Yeah. But now it's different. It's, here's my to-do list. Lunch. All right, cool. I know what that is today. It's protein shake and protein cookie or whatever. Peanut butter and jelly on rice cake, whatever. I don't have to spend 11:30 to 12 thinking about it. From 11:30 to 12, I'm now taking a business development meeting. I don't have to think at 4 o'clock, what am I doing for dinner at 6? It's already done. So now from 4 to 5, I can watch a couple of YouTube videos on marketing. I could sit in on a lesson, a marketing lesson on next steps in viral TikTok videos to fit my niche. Okay, cool. Now it's like I'm using it to be productive. I can say from 4 to 5, I'm going to take the certification class to be certified in obesity medicine. Cool. Because this is all stuff I'm doing. I couldn't do that with the distractions of having any sort of addiction, whether it's food or alcohol.
No, you're absolutely right. So I want to close out with this. What are your inspirational feedback for somebody who's going to tread in a weight loss journey? What would be your inspiration to pass along to somebody who is going to begin this journey, sometimes have difficult times?
Listen, there's plenty. I mean, if anyone has ever said about failure is temporary. It's not an absolute. You're going to have days where you just don't have it in you. Got to show up anyway. You're going to have days where you just say, I ate poorly today. It's no big deal. Make a better choice tomorrow. Start winning the afternoon, and this way you could win the day. Start winning the day. So this way you can start winning the weeks. Start winning the weeks. You start winning the months. It's a battle. It's not an MMA fight. It's 15 rounds. It's long. It's a marathon. If anyone tells you weight loss is fast and easy fix, they're lying to you. I tell every single one of my weight loss patients, my obesity patients that I treat, I tell every single one of them, this is a marathon. Every single step needs to be celebrated in this journey because it's rough. It is. It's you're walking over glass that's on fire. It's not easy. Okay. You could do it. Acknowledge every step. Okay. And just know that it's going to take time. The longer it takes to get off, the longer it's going to take to come back on over time. but it's never gonna. You do it right, it's not gonna come back. The other thing for inspiration, I say this for every single one of my mental health patients. Doesn't matter what the issue is. The Here Comes Santa Claus, the old animatronic claymation, right? The big song of from back in the day, the Christmas special. The big song is one foot in front of the other. I've applied the lyrics of the song for every single thing in my life, and it's made all the difference. The lyrics go, one foot in front of the other, soon you'll be walking across the floor. One foot in front of the other, soon you'll be walking out the door. That's every single problem in life. It's just one, you just have to take one step. One step leads to two steps, but it's still one step. 10,000 steps is still one step 10,000 times. If you watch the Creed movie, the first Creed movie, Rocky tells Adonis, it's one punch at a time, one round at a time, one fight at a time. Don't worry about 3 fights from now. Worry about the next punch that's coming at you. Don't think that far ahead. You just need to see that one punch coming at you, just so you know how you're going to react. And just know you can do it. That's every single day. These are things I tell myself. I leave notes for myself around the house saying these things. It's in my office, at my actual office. There's a sticky note on my monitor, one foot in front of the other.
That's so true.
It's every single thing is one foot in front of the other.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Andrew, I can't thank you enough.
Oh, thank you.
This has been super informative. We're going to devise a new topic. We are going to have you back and talk more about mental health and just being best person that one person can be.
That's all we can.
Not trying to be like somebody else.
Nope.
We all don't have to be Kim K. That's already done and played.
There's
over
already a Kim K.
times.
Why would you be another Kim K? We have a Kim K.
Right, exactly.
Don't be Kim K. Don't be Marabelle Blue.
Just be yourself.
Hey, if someone's listening, like, oh, I want to be the next Marabelle Blue. No, we have one. Be the first you. Don't be the next anyone. Be the first you. Yeah.
Be yourself. Thank you so much for being on this episode. I hope that you got a lot out of this. I know it's a lot to take in, and some people get into their feelings. And I always say, try not to get into your feelings. Try to look at it from a perspective that you want to be better a day at a time. And thank you so much for watching this episode. Always remember, be good to yourself, be good to each other, and most importantly, take care of you. Bye, everybody.